Imagine waking up at 3 in the morning in a dimly lit hotel room in Tokyo and seeing a woman in a white robe standing at the foot of your bed. Her hair is long and black, and her face has no features, just a blur. Now imagine this happens to you almost everywhere you go, because you can see the dead. This is my story, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at a hotel room the same way again. If you're new here, I post true stories from my own life, stories about things most people cannot see. I'm a woman in my 40s from Hong Kong, and I was born with what some people call a gift. Personally, I've always called it complicated. If this kind of content is your thing, go ahead and hit subscribe and tap the notification bell right now, so you never miss a new story, and please, stick around, because this one gets so much worse before it gets better. Let me tell you a little about myself and what it actually feels like to live with this so-called gift. I grew up in Hong Kong, a city I love deeply. It carries the spirit of ancient Chinese culture while being completely modern and unlike anywhere else in the world. Every time I walk its streets, they feel alive to me. Far more alive than most people realise, because I see things others don't. For as long as I can remember, I have been able to see spirits, the souls of the dead. Especially at night, they are everywhere. Dark corners, quiet alleyways, empty streets. Most people walk straight through them without knowing. I cannot do that. My strategy for survival has always been the same. Pretend I don't see them. If a spirit senses that you can see it, it will come to you. It may want something, so I keep my eyes forward, my expression neutral, and I keep walking. It works. Most of the time. This ability didn't stop me from living a full life. About 20 years ago, I met the man who would become my husband. He was a flight attendant, confident, energetic, and seemingly unshakable. Nothing rattled him. I was completely drawn to his energy, and eventually we got married. He knew about my ability from early on. His one request: don't tell me what you see. Just don't. I respected that, though I'll admit, when we walked together at night, I would quietly steer him around certain clusters in the crowd. He couldn't see what I was guiding him around, but he could always feel the shift in my behaviour, and it quietly terrified him. One summer, we decided to take a trip to Tokyo. We had been before and loved it, but this time, we chose to travel during Japan's Obon Festival. For those of you who don't know, Obon is Japan's ghost festival. It's a Buddhist tradition where the spirits of the deceased are believed to return to the world of the living to visit their loved ones. It typically falls in mid-August. We actually chose this period for a very practical reason. Most Japanese travellers leave the cities during Obon to visit their hometowns, so the tourist spots are far less crowded. Smart travel hack. Or so we thought. We booked an older hotel, a bit removed from the popular districts. Budget-friendly, quiet, and old in its own particular way. Like most Tokyo hotel rooms, ours was compact, roughly 160 square feet including the bathroom. We were used to it, no problem. What we were not prepared for was the atmosphere. The lighting throughout the entire hotel was dim, the lobby, the corridors, even our guest room. Everything felt just a few shades darker than it should have been. Like the building itself was trying to hide something. I noticed it immediately. I filed it away and said nothing. We landed at Narita Airport around 4 p.m. and didn't check in until 8 in the evening. We were exhausted. We had dinner at a restaurant nearby and came straight back to rest. And that's when it started. The moment I stepped back into the room after dinner, I felt dizzy. A wave of discomfort washed over me, a feeling I have come to recognise very well over the years. It means something is nearby. Something that was not invited. I said nothing to my husband. I didn't want to frighten him before we'd even had a chance to sleep. I went to take a shower, and through the bathroom door, I heard it clearly. A woman's voice, softly singing. I assumed it was the TV. I stepped out of the bathroom. The TV was off. It had been off the entire time. Was the TV on just now? I asked my husband carefully. I heard a woman singing. He looked at me with that expression I knew well. Confused. Uneasy. The TV's been off the whole time, he said quietly. I didn't push it. We went to bed. I woke up at 3 a.m. The humming was back. I turned to my left. My husband was facing the wall, sound asleep. I lay perfectly still, listening. Then I looked toward the foot of the bed. She was standing there. A woman in a white robe, long black hair falling past her shoulders, and where her face should have been. Nothing. Just a blur, as though someone had smeared her features completely away. My heart stopped. Then it started again, far too fast. I did what I always do. I pretended I couldn't see her. I closed my eyes slowly, deliberately. I kept my breathing as steady as I possibly could. I did not pull the blanket over my head, even though every instinct was screaming at me to, because if I reacted, if I showed fear or acknowledgement or awareness, she would know I could see her. And I had no idea what she would do next. Every second felt like an hour. I slowly, carefully opened one eye, just a fraction. She had moved. She was now standing directly beside my head. The temperature in the room had dropped sharply. I could feel cold radiating from where she stood. She was still humming, that low, formless melody, right next to my ear. I've never been so terrified in my life. And then an idea came to me. Still pretending to see nothing, I reached over and gently shook my husband awake. "Can you come with me to the bathroom?" I whispered. He groaned. "It's right there. Just go by yourself." "Please," I said. "Oh, I need you to come with me." Something in my voice made him stop arguing. He reluctantly reached over and switched on the bedside lamp and flooded the room with light. She was gone. My husband walked me to the bathroom and back, and then I sat down on the bed and told him everything. He was not pleased. "You could have told me in the morning," he said, eyes wide, now completely awake. "Now I'll never get back to sleep." He was right. Neither of us slept until sunrise. But she did not come back. The next morning, exhausted and shaken, we went down to the front desk and asked to change rooms. The staff member asked for the reason. I told her exactly what I had experienced. The singing, the woman in white, the face with no features, the cold. She did not flinch. She did not look surprised. She simply nodded, typed something into her computer, and moved us to a room on a different floor. That reaction told me everything. The hotel already knew about her. We spent the rest of the trip in the new room and slept soundly each night. Out on the streets I still saw things, especially in dark alleyways and quiet corners, as I always do. But as usual I kept walking, eyes forward, expression neutral. We had a wonderful time in Tokyo. But I will never forget that dim hotel corridor, that humming in the dark, and that blurred, featureless face, standing over me at 3 a.m. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. That night in Tokyo still sends chills through me every time I think about it. Now let's move on to the next story. This one is about Tai Shen, under the Chinese tradition. Tai Shen is the spirit of an unborn child, and it will enter a pregnant woman's womb, right before being born. Stay safe, and maybe sleep with the lights on tonight.
The baby spirit that should not be disturbed. A true story from Macau. There is an ancient Chinese belief that many modern people have forgotten. It speaks of something called the Tai Shen, the spirit of an unborn child. According to ancient tradition, when a woman becomes pregnant, the spirit of the unborn child does not immediately enter the womb. Invisible, silent, watching. Instead, the spirit quietly waits somewhere inside the house where the mother lives, waiting for the moment when it will finally enter the body and become the child. Because of this belief, elders always warn pregnant families about one very strange rule. Never hammer nails into the walls. Never renovate the house. Never disturb the place where the spirit might be resting. Because if the unborn spirit is accidentally harmed, the child itself may suffer the same injury. At the time, most of us did not take this belief very seriously. But looking back now, that warning feels very different. Most modern people laugh at this superstition. My cousin did too. But what happened to her family many years ago made many of us question whether the old people might have been right. What I am about to tell you is a true story that happened in my own family. This happened about 20 years ago in Macau. My cousin had just married a young man who worked in telecommunications. She herself worked as a teller at a local bank. The two of them were young, hard-working, and very happy together. Not long after their wedding, they received wonderful news. She was pregnant with their first child. For the entire family, it was a moment of joy. Everyone began imagining the future, the baby's name, the baby's room, the life that was about to begin. Everything seemed perfect. But around the same time, something unexpected happened. The husband's older brother suddenly decided to sell his apartment. At first, this did not seem unusual. But there was something very strange about the location of the apartment. It was directly across from a Chinese temple. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with Chinese culture, a temple is not only a place for worship. Many people believe that temples are also places where wandering spirits gather. Some are spirits waiting for rebirth. Some are spirits with unfinished business. Because of this belief, many people avoid living too close to temples, especially old temples that have existed for centuries. At night, the streets around them can feel unsettling. At the time, we thought the temple was the only strange thing about that apartment, but later, we realized the real danger might have been inside the house itself. The older brother wanted to sell the apartment quickly. In fact, he suggested that my cousin's husband should buy it. Their mother strongly encouraged the idea. She said it would help the older brother buy another property he wanted. But there was one problem. The price was slightly higher than the market price, and the apartment would require some renovations before they could move in. When some of us in the family heard about this, we felt uneasy. Not just because of the temple, but because my cousin was already pregnant. The older generation quietly reminded her about the belief of the unborn spirit. They warned her gently. During pregnancy, try not to hammer nails into the walls. Avoid renovations. Avoid disturbing the house. But my cousin was practical and modern. She laughed and said something simple. "That's just superstition." She continued going to work. Every few weeks she went to the hospital for checkups. And every time the doctor told her the same thing. The baby was healthy. The pregnancy was progressing normally. By the 6th month, everything looked perfect. So the couple went ahead and bought the apartment. The purchase process was smooth. Soon after, they began moving in. But before settling down, they decided to make a few small renovations. Nothing major, just minor adjustments. A few holes drilled into the walls. A few nails hammered into place. Perhaps a shelf here. A picture frame there. The sound of hammering echoed through the apartment for several days. To them, it was just normal home improvement. But to some of the elders in our family, those sounds were deeply unsettling. Still, nothing seemed wrong. Months passed. My cousin continued her routine. She worked during the day, rested at night. The baby moved gently inside her womb. Life appeared completely normal. Then something happened that none of us could have predicted. Something that still troubles our family to this day. Until one day, everything changed. It started with a routine hospital check. But during the ultrasound, The doctor suddenly became quiet. Very quiet. The nurse looked at the screen, then looked at the doctor. Neither of them spoke. My cousin immediately sensed something was wrong. The doctor finally spoke. Something had gone terribly wrong with the baby. The fetus had developed a catastrophic condition. The baby could not survive. The only medical option left was surgery. The news shattered the entire family. For a long time, we searched for a medical explanation. But some of the older relatives believed something else had happened. For days, nobody could understand what had happened. Only weeks earlier, every medical report had been normal. There had been no warning, no illness, no accident, nothing. Only silence. Quietly, some of the older relatives began whispering about the same thing. The hammering, the renovations, the ancient warning about disturbing the spirit of an unborn child. Of course, nobody could prove anything. Perhaps it was simply a rare medical tragedy. Perhaps coincidence. Perhaps fate. Life slowly moved on. 2 years later, my cousin became pregnant again. This time, the whole family was cautious. She eventually gave birth to a baby girl. But when the child was about 10 months old, doctors discovered a serious heart condition. She needed surgery. Once again, fear filled the family. But this time, fortune was kinder. The surgery succeeded. Today, that girl's already in her early 20s. Healthy, strong, living a normal life. Yet whenever the older relatives talk about the past, someone always asks the same question. Did something happen in that apartment across from the temple? Did the renovations disturb something that should never have been disturbed? Or was it simply coincidence? Modern people may dismiss the old traditions, but those traditions existed for thousands of years. And sometimes, when strange things happen, people begin to wonder whether the old wisdom carried truths that modern life has forgotten. Perhaps some things in this world cannot be fully explained. And perhaps some spirits prefer not to be disturbed. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoy mysterious stories about forgotten traditions, ancient beliefs, and real ghost encounters, please consider subscribing to this channel. Your support helps us continue creating more stories like this for you. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever heard stories about the spirit of an unborn child, sometimes called the Tai Shen? Or experienced something that you could not explain? Tell us your story in the comments. We would love to read it. And if you enjoy real Asian ghost stories and mysterious folklore, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next story. Until next time.